welcome back to the Stevens Kitchen. Today we're going to be making the easiest crusty roll recipe that you will ever have. So I'm going to run you guys through the ingredients and we'll get started. Okay, so the ingredients you're going to need is some warm water at roughly about 100 degrees. I have some bread flour here. If you only have all-purpose, you can use that as well, but this I think just gives a better consistency to the bread. I have a little bit of vegetable oil. You could use olive oil, but I prefer a flavorless oil. I have some active dry yeast. I have a little bit of sugar. You could also use honey. And then I have some salt. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to proof our yeast, and I'll show you guys how to do that. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is just put my warm water right into my mixing bowl, and then I'm going to grab my sugar. I'm going to throw in about a tablespoon or so of this. The reason why you do this is because to proof your yeast, the yeast needs to feed, and it likes sugar. So I'm just going to give this a quick mix to get the sugar a little bit melted. All right, that looks great. And now I'm going to pour my yeast right on top of that. I'm using active dry yeast. You could also use instant yeast or rapid rise yeast if that's all you have. All right, so I'm putting a whole packet of that in there, and now you're gonna leave this here for about 10 minutes. You'll know when it's ready. I always say that if yeast proofs correctly, that it almost smells like Cheerios. It's the weirdest thing. It smells like plain Cheerios, and you'll know that it's ready because it'll puff up. If it doesn't puff up and if you don't smell the yeast, then probably means that either your water was way too cold or way too hot, and the yeast either didn't activate or you killed it. So you don't want to go forward with the recipe unless it looks right, and I will show you guys what that looks like in about 10 minutes. All right, so it's been almost 10 minutes and my yeast has proofed beautifully. You can see that it's all nice and puffed up and all of the bits of yeast have dissolved. So we're gonna get started making our dough. So right into my mixture right here, and you could use a KitchenAid for this. I'll be honest, I would be using my KitchenAid, but the mixing bowl is in the dishwasher. So I'm just gonna be using a bowl and my spatula. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add in about half of my bread flour mixture, and I'm gonna start folding this in. And eventually I'm gonna end up just changing over to my hand if you are making this without a KitchenAid. But to start it off, I'm gonna be using my spatula. All right, and now that we've introduced the yeast mixture with some flour, now we can add our salt to the remaining bit of flour. You never want to add your salt directly in with the yeast mixture because yeast doesn't like salt. So I'm just going to add a good amount of salt in there. And I'm using iodized salt just because I ran out of sea salt, but you can use sea salt, you can use whatever you'd like. So I'm going to throw in the remainder of my flour, and then I'm going to throw in my 2 tablespoons of flavorless oil, and this is just going to help give your rolls a great consistency in the middle. So now at this point I'm actually going to change over to my hands, and just with one hand I'm going to go in there and roll this around until I have a nice soft ball of dough. Okay, so now that I have this all mixed together, if you're using a standing mixer, then at this point you would just turn it on and let it go for a few minutes. But again, I'm not using mine, so I'm just going to throw this onto my floured countertop, and I'm just going to be taking a little bit more on top, and I'm just going to knead this together. You don't want to use too much flour, but you just want to work it around a little bit. You don't have to stand here for hours and knead this together, but you just want to knead it a little bit to develop the gluten in it until it's in a nice clean ball, and I will show you guys what that looks like. All right, look at that. So now this is exactly what you're looking for. It's gonna be slightly tacky, but it's not sticking to my countertop. It's taken up all that flour. So now what I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna pop it in a bowl. All right, so now what I'm gonna do with this is I just have a bowl right here that I put some olive oil in and I brush down the sides. And I'm just gonna throw my ball of beautiful dough right on in there. I'm gonna brush a little bit of olive oil over the top of it because I'm going to cover this with saran wrap, and I'm going to put this in a warm place that's draft free for about an hour. So what I like to do is I like to put this in my oven with the oven turned off, just because, again, draft free. So I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap. We're going to let it rise for an hour, and I will show you guys the next step. So my dough was sitting and resting for about an hour, and it has risen beautifully. I have a pan right here that I have just rubbed some vegetable shortening, and now we're going to form our rolls and then let them sit and rest for the second rise. So I have some bread flour on my board. I have a dough scraper as well to help. I'm just going to dump out my dough. Oh, look at that. And it's so nice and soft. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flour this a little bit so that it's not sticking to everything. And I'm going to use my dough scraper to cut my rolls. All right, I just took my ball of dough and I cut it up into 4 strips. And now with my dough scraper, I'm just going to take it and I'm going to, I do it fast, I'm gonna try and slow it down. You kind of pull it apart a little bit and you squeeze it into the middle until you get a nice ball going. And then once you do, just kind of squeeze the bottom, pinch it, and there's your ball. There's your little crusty roll. So I'm gonna do that with the remainder of my dough and I will show you guys when I'm done. I portioned out all of my dough. This recipe makes 12 beautiful rolls. So now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover this with some plastic wrap. And then we're gonna let these sit again in a nice warm draft-free place for about an hour or 2 or until they double in volume. And I will show you guys what that looks like when they get there. My rolls are resting for about an hour and a half. They puffed up, they're super soft, and I can't wait to bake them. So a couple more steps. You wanna turn your oven on to 500 degrees. We're gonna bake them in there for about 10 minutes. We're gonna turn down the oven to 400 degrees and then bake it for another 15 minutes or until they're a nice golden brown. If you don't have that, I'll put that down in the description box below. But before we can bake them, we're going to get a pastry brush, or you can use a spray bottle. If you have that, that would be easier. And you just want to brush your rolls with the water. I know it's weird. You know, it's not egg wash, it's not butter, it's water. It's a little strange, but stay with me here. It works. So I'm just gonna brush these down. All right, and then once you have brushed them all with a little bit of water, you just wanna take a sharp paring knife or a razor if you have it, and you just want to slice diagonal like that. You just want to give the buns a little bit of an opening so that they can expand while they're baking. And it also looks nice too. Okay. So now these are ready to go in the oven. First round is going to be at 500 degrees, like I said, for about 10 minutes. We're going to turn down the heat to 400 and then we'll bake for 15 more minutes. So in about 25 minutes, I will show you what these look like. My rolls baked for 25 minutes exactly, and they're absolutely perfect. Don't mind the robe, it's comfortable. I'm just gonna pop one of these out. Look at that. Listen to this. Nice and crusty. I'm just gonna cut on in to one to serve for myself and to do a little taste test. I'm gonna be putting on a little bit of butter. Ooh, it's gonna be good. You guys did it with me. You saw how easy it is to make, and I will put the measurements down below along with the method. And if you guys like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the Steven's Kitchen for more videos. And until next time, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!